This is the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, episode 79, Clinton County Foundation's Pillars of Education, Health, and Economic Development, with our guest today, Mark Kraus.
We really want to be the leaders in education and health and wellness and economic development. But what are we doing, with the literacy issue that we have in Clinton County and primarily, specifically Wilmington? And we're forming a literacy consortium, collaborative, that's going to really look at how can we really tackle some of these problems. And I think that's really what the foundation is meant to do. I think we're supposed to be taking the lead role in these things.
What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the Real Change Wilmington Podcast, Dustin Pierce. Real Change is a positive, constructive, and lighthearted source of local news events and resources. On our podcast, we interview leaders of local organizations to help squash rumors and encourage a greater sense of pride in our community. We have a great episode for you today with our guest, Mark Kraus, who is currently the Executive Director for the Clinton County Foundation out on Ronback Avenue. The Clinton County Foundation is a community foundation that helps maximize charitable investments and grants to create a positive impact in our local community. The foundation was established in 1985 and officially received its tax-exempt status in 1986. It was run by a board of trustees until 2015, when they hired their first part-time director. And as of the time of recording this podcast, the foundation manages 117 funds and over $41 million. The foundation focuses on three major areas: education, health and wellness, and economic development, meaning helping local employers give back to the areas that they do business in. Mark has a long career in business development and management for nonprofits, including the Boy Scouts of America, which has taken him all over the country, including California, before he came back to Ohio and settled in Jamestown, which is right next to Wilmington, with his wife. What I appreciate about Mark is that he is out and about in our community trying to make connections and bring people together to make a positive impact in Wilmington, including tackling our issue with early childhood literacy. If you don't know, Wilmington City Schools scored a 1 out of 5 on our state report card in early childhood literacy. To be fair, this is an issue nationwide, but I am glad to know that the Clinton County Foundation, our schools, and our other educational institutions are all working together to tackle this issue of early childhood literacy in our community. So with that, let's bring in our guest today and get this podcast started. Mark Kraus, welcome to the podcast. You are the current executive director of the Clinton County Community Foundation.
I am.
And before we get into what you do and what the foundation does, we're going to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
So kind of tell us your background and what brought you to Wilmington.
Well, I have spent 36 years working in the nonprofit sector. I spent that time with various organizations. The biggest chunk of that was 24 years working with various councils within the Boy Scouts of America. I actually worked in Columbus, Dayton, Louisville, Kentucky, Glendale, California, and Milford, Connecticut for different councils. The last two I served actually as the chief executive officer for those councils. So I've been in various roles. All of them involved fundraising development efforts and usually management as well. But prior to that, I spent some time as a recruiter for an agency. Also did retail management for a while before I got into the nonprofit sector, and really kind of got into it thinking I'll give it a try and see how it goes. And here we are 36 years later. So, and I think the reason that I've stayed in it so long is that I really see the impact that it has on individuals, families, communities. When you see a visible difference in somebody because of something your organization's been able to do, that's better than any paycheck you're ever going to get. And I don't think most people get into nonprofit work because they think they're going to make a lot of money. So it's more about feeling good about what you're doing and trying to really, really make a difference. But that's, how I got to Wilmington is I actually, when I retired from the Boy Scouts, I moved from Milford, Connecticut back to the area and was working for Mercy Health Foundation in Springfield. And this came across the social media site, and I put my hat in the ring and Probably within 3 weeks, I was offered the position. And the foundation was really looking to kind of change what they were doing. They wanted to focus more on being out in the public eye. They wanted to do some of our own fundraising programs, which they had not done before. So we're going to be doing some special events in 2026 to raise money, because we have 4 funds that we hold internally that we make grants through, but we've never really raised money to try to grow those. So we're going to be doing some of that in 2026. And really, it's just been, yeah, going into 5 months now, and it's just been kind of a whirlwind, because I've been out pretty much every day going to different things and meeting with people, and the response has been phenomenal. People love the fact that we're out, we're visible. We tell people we really want to be the leaders in education and health and wellness and economic development. But up until now, we really weren't doing a lot to really have that impact. We were giving a lot of scholarship dollars out, but is that really impacting education? It's impacting higher ed, but what are we doing, with the literacy issue that we have in Clinton County and primarily, specifically Wilmington? And we're focusing on that through an initiative that I started, and we've got about 20 different group people, from the schools to the nonprofits that deal with youth literacy, to the colleges, to the library systems. And we're forming a literacy consortium collaborative that's going to really look at how can we really tackle some of these problems. And I think that's really what the foundation is meant to do. I think we're supposed to be taking the lead role in these things. So, and I've had conversations with Kettering, the folks at Kettering Health, and also I've had a conversation with the folks at TriHealth about what the expectation, I think, at the community is going to be of them, with them coming in, and especially Kettering putting $93 million into the facility. What's that look like? How are they going to locally impact what we're trying to do? So, and one of the things that, I've always felt in my career is I'm a dot connector. I when I meet with people, I'm like, okay, what are you looking to accomplish? Who do I know that can help you with that? How can we help you with that? And how do we connect those dots, and what's that all look like?
Yeah.
Right. And how does that create partnerships that are beneficial for all parties? Because a partnership, if it's not beneficial for everybody, it's not really a partnership. So those are kind of the things that we're really kind of out trying to do at this point with the foundation.
Yeah. Before the podcast, we kind of discussed the previous director, and I always had a good relationship with her. Not a super close one, but one of the things is that she lived in Dublin. So you are a lot closer. So you can be boots on the ground in the community, which is needed, like you said, to connect those dots.
It really is. I think these type of roles, and I found in nonprofits pretty much in general, when you're in a management role, or if you're in a development role or executive director role, whatever it is, you've got to be visible. You've got to be out meeting people. You can't raise money sitting behind your desk. You can't have an impact on organizations or the community sitting behind your desk. And so for me, although I do spend a fair share of time in the office, and I am in our office every day at some point, but that's, kind of, okay, what do I need to get done today? What are my appointments? And then, get out and go out and do what we need to do. So, and we've really, and one of the things I did is we outsourced our accounting. So that kind of freed up the ability for me to put more focus on bringing on somebody as a program manager who really can lead that effort with grants and scholarships and working with these fund advisors, because, all these funds, all these 117 funds have folks that take responsibility for those, that work with the foundation and making sure that their mission is being accomplished. So I took Lynn Deathridge, who was on our board as a trustee, and asked her if she would come on it's not a full-time role, it's a part-time role, about 30 hours a week. But she was overseeing the scholarship and grant portal and committee. So it made sense with her institutional knowledge to see if she would do it. And she agreed to do it. And she's had a tremendous impact.
And that's more than like scholarships for students. That's like every scholarship you give out.
Every fund that we
Every fund you
have.
give out. Yeah.
And probably, I mean, I don't know the exact number of funds that actually are just scholarship, but our funds span every facet that you can imagine. I mean, we had a meeting yesterday with the Heather's Hope Fund, which helps people that are dealing with diabetes by providing money to support their medications, insulin pumps, that kind of thing. So, we have funds that focus on medical. We have funds that focus on education. We have funds that focus on the arts. It's just really kind of all over the map.
And you mentioned that one of your connections to the area was that your wife had some family here. That's what brought you back to the area.
Yeah. So we both grew up in the Dayton area. We still, for the most part, all of our family is still scattered around the general Dayton area. We moved, we actually live in Jamestown, just literally probably a couple miles from the border of Clinton County. But she has a brother that lives there and some cousins that live in Jamestown. So when we decided to look to find a place, it just kind of made sense. And great thing about living in a Jamestown or out in some of the areas in Clinton County is you're close enough to get to what you need to, but you're far enough away to where if you want to get away, you get away, and it's nice and quiet. And so that does make a difference. Having lived in Southern California for 5 years where, it was constant 24 hours a day.
What city in Southern California?
Glendale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Carlsbad? I was just there on vacation.
I did not. I have not been to Carlsbad. I've been to a lot of spots in California, but not Carlsbad. Yeah.
Okay.
But I went to up to Napa Valley, which is amazing. I've been to Monterey Bay, which is phenomenal. San Diego, all of those areas for different conferences and things. But yeah, it's a great area. I wouldn't want to move back out there. It's you talk about cost of living, and this area the income might not be anywhere near close to what people make in California, but people in California are struggling just like people struggle around here, even though they might be making 10 times more than people make here because the cost of living is just astronomical out there. Housing market, just none of it makes any sense. So, 1,100 square foot home going for $2 million. So
you said you were in the Boy Scouts out there?
I was the CEO for the council in the Glendale Burbank area.
So how do the Boy Scouts make their money? I know Girl Scouts have the cookies. Like, how do Boy Scouts raise funds?
Well, Boy Scouts actually, we do a product sale, popcorn in the fall, but that's a very, very minor part of the revenue. Most of our money comes from annual giving campaigns or special events. The scouting normally does a lot of fundraising lunches and dinners and those kind of things within various communities. And there's also a lot of work on grants, and they do a lot of endowment work too. So those are things that, as I look at this education literacy group that we're putting together is, at some point we're going to have a look at dollars and how are we going to get the money to really have this impact that we're going to come up with? And we're kind of, everybody right now is putting down their ideas. Kids Read Now, they've been doing community literacy plans. They're a national organization, and although they're based in Troy, Ohio, so they actually put together community literacy plans working with educators within the communities. So right now, all of the folks that were at this meeting have until January 12th to put their stuff on paper, and then they're going to take it, analyze it, and come back to us when we meet at the end of January as a group and say, okay, here's what we're saying. And then we start talking about, okay, how do we implement some of these things and what's that going to cost?
Yeah.
Right? So, and one of the things I've been approached by a lot of our funds, the fund advisors, is we know there's grants out there that we could apply for, but we're not grant writers. So we don't know how to go about really going after those grants. So one of the things that I'm kicking around right now is, should we look at maybe contracting with a grant writer that could write grants to support all of our funds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that's kind of being kicked around. and I know some grant writers. I've worked with grant writers in other organizations.
Is
So
it hard to be a grant writer? Because I would assume you need to know some like in-depth details about the things that you're writing grants for. It's not just like filling out a form. It's like you got to know
you
information.
have to do your homework.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've written a lot of grants for organizations that I've worked for, but it's time consuming because there's a lot of material that you have to develop, especially if you're really going after significant dollars.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a packet 6 inches thick with things that they're asking for, right? That they want to see. So you really need somebody who can really focus their time on that. But yeah, they need to be knowledgeable, and a lot of that though comes from the organization too. Is you are providing them with that knowledge and with a lot of that material. As well. So again, that's that partnership that I talk about when it comes to things such as grants. You really need to have that partnership so everybody understands this is what we're applying for. This is why we're applying for it,
Mm-hmm.
and what that outcome is going to be. And the one thing I will say that I've not done a lot of is government grants. Typically, just because there's a lot of red tape involved. I know there's significant dollars available, but I sometimes wonder if the red tape is worth what you might be able to get
Right.
from the grant.
What got you involved with the Boy Scouts? Were you involved at a young age and then?
No, I was never in Scouts as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were your kids in Scouts?
No, no. I had a friend of mine who worked for the Scout Council in Springfield, Ohio. And we were talking, we'd variously talk about what his job entailed. And he said to me one day, he said, you ought to apply. He said, I think you'd be really good at this. And so at that time, and it's changed significantly since then, this was back in 1990, you took a 4.5 hour oral exam, and it was a personality thing related to, the way they peppered you with the questions. And obviously I must have done well enough to where they offered me a role. And literally when I started it, I thought, well, we'll give it a try and see how it goes. I never thought I'd be still working in nonprofits 36 years later.
So that was your first.
That was my first. And so I worked for the Boy Scouts from 1990 to 1997. And then I left and went to work for Kettering Medical Center Foundation. I was running the capital campaign they were doing for the Neuroscience Institute that they were developing. And
Kettering Health, like the one.
Kettering Health, yeah. Okay. This was actually when they only had their campus down in Kettering. Now they're all over the place. Mm-hmm. They've grown so significantly. And then eventually we moved to Louisville. I went down there to run foundations for a health system down there. And then in 2007, I went back to work for the Boy Scouts. I was recruited by some of their board members who knew me through my other organizations. And they created a position for me to do plain giving and major gifts, which lasted about 2 months before I was given the keys to director of development, running everything related to the bookkeeping side of the house, the retail side of the house, because we had stores where we sold merchandise. All of that fell under me. So I was managing at that point 19 people and producing revenue approximately 6 to 7 million a year for the budget. And then, as I said, 2015, I got the opportunity to become the CEO for a council out in Glendale. So I took that opportunity. Prior to that, it had primarily all been upper level management, but never really the CEO of the council. So it was, quite a bit of a shift because I couldn't pass the buck. If somebody came to me with a problem, I couldn't say, well, I got to take it to my boss. There was nobody to pass it to. I was the boss. So it really kind of changed the perspective of how you view things and how people view you and how you handle things. So it was a big learning curve at first. And fortunately, had tremendous staffs that I worked with in both locations, both Glendale and Milford, and great boards. And so when you have that, it makes it a lot easier because, a good board really makes a difference in a nonprofit.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
And you said you spent some time in Colorado, right? Is that where you raised your
Well,
family?
no. My daughter lives in
So
Colorado.
you were never there. Okay.
We never lived
Gotcha.
in
Gotcha.
Colorado. Yeah, yeah. She lives out there, and so we get out there as often as we can, but not as much as we'd like to because she has two of our grandkids are out there. So
Mm, nice. So you're married. How did you meet your wife?
uh,
I bet a story's coming.
yeah. So I was when I graduated college. My degree was in communications, primarily broadcasting. And I was working in radio as an intern my senior year. I actually worked at WHIO AM radio. I did overnights. I did the morning board for the morning shows, and got to work with some absolute legends in Dayton radio. And was working at another little radio station in Sydney, Ohio, and really trying to, radio's, it's tough to break into the broadcasting world. I called Omar Williams and those guys friends. I mean, Omar was a legend at Channel 2, and literally, Larry Hanskin at WHO is a good friend of mine. And so, I stayed in touch with all those folks, but it was really, really difficult to break into that field. And so I started working in nightclubs as a disc jockey, and did that off and on for about 10 years as a second job, and met my wife through that because she worked in a club, and that's how we met. And very short courtship. We met on her birthday, January 20th. We had our first date on Valentine's Day. We got engaged Memorial Day and got married Labor Day.
Wow.
And we've been together 35 years.
How old were you at the time?
I was 28.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That is fast.
Yeah.
What about her got you?
You know, it just felt like this is somebody that I could see. My parents, before my dad passed away, my parents had been married 62 years. And my brothers, who are considerably older than I am, have both been married over 50 years. So there's some longevity, in the family with that. So, I think when you know it's the right person, you just kind of know it. And like anything, anybody out there that sees that they're gonna, if they've been married a long time, there's always ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and and then you start having kids and the world changes, and it doesn't get any easier as the kids get older. You just worry about them in a different way than you did when they were younger. And now that you got grandkids, it shifts everything again. So it's, constant evolution in a way.
You guys have 2 kids, you said?
We do, yeah. I have a daughter out in Colorado, and then a son that lives in Bellbrook. So,
And what does your wife do for a career? Did she have a career?
actually, her career was raising the family.
Okay.
And we made that decision when our daughter was born. And I have to tell you, financially, it was a struggle because, when I started working for the Boy Scouts, I was making a whopping $19,000 a year. Now, back in 1990, that still wasn't a lot of money. And so we had our financial struggles over the years, but that was important that she wanted to be there. And we thought that was, to be there for the kids. And I think it was worth the struggles, and I see my daughter works, but fortunately she's able to work a lot from home. My son and my daughter-in-law are unfortunate. We're going to be kind of the caregiver while they're, when they work, but my daughter-in-law works a split schedule. She's a NICU nurse at Dayton Children's. So she's now constantly working every day. She's got 12-hour shifts, so she might work 3 days a week or whatever. So we're going to help them with that because, honestly, the cost of daycare is just astronomical. I don't know how people afford it. And that was one of the things for us too, was what job are you going to get that's going to not just go to pay the daycare, and you're really not ahead of the game.
Yeah.
So.
And you miss out on raising your kids too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's the point of it all.
And we were very engaged. I coached before I ever got married, but I coached both of my kids, primarily in soccer over the years. And I just felt that was important to, to be part of that. And instead of standing on the sidelines just as a parent, I wanted to be engaged. And I think my kids have told me that they really appreciated the fact
Mm.
that I did that. And so we had that time, even though they were doing something out of the house, we still had that time together.
Yeah.
And we were working on trying to build teams that were successful. And we usually were pretty successful. I mean, I felt good about that. But yeah, I think it was important to be part of that. So.
You could see that being valuable as a child to like see that your parents involved with your life outside of just the home basic necessities.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. I mean, you see these things that, kids, you see them walking, you'll see video clips where kids walk in the auditorium for a program that they're part of and they're looking around to see if their parents are there. It is important for the parents to be there. Kids can tell you maybe they don't want you there. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. And as you go through dealing with the teenage years, they're going to tell you one thing and mean another.
Yeah.
So, and you learn that as time goes on. So
they want you there, but they don't want you to embarrass them.
Exactly.
There's a fine line.
Yeah. That's very true.
So what are some of your guys' hobbies? You and your wife, or you and your grandkids and children?
Well, my wife is a huge gardener. In fact, she started, unfortunately, this is going to be the last year for it, but she started 3 years ago, the Jamestown Community Garden. And she got a group of people together, and the idea was to provide produce to families who were struggling. So she pretty much did that, majority of it on her own, although she did have a core of maybe 2 or 3 other people that helped her. And the first year, I think they provided produce to over 35 families within Jamestown. We had people coming from Wilmington, Sabina. They were coming from all over. And then the second year, we moved it to our house. So literally a quarter of our backyard is garden, to where the community garden and then our own garden, because she does a lot of that as well. So that's kind of her big hobby. My hobby, when I get a chance to, is to play golf. And I don't get to play as much as I'd like to, but my son belongs to a country club. So, we go out and play, and it's nice to be able to spend that time together, as well. So, but yeah, we never really had I wouldn't say we ever really had a big family hobby,
Yeah.
other than probably soccer when the kids were growing up. I mean, our world was 12 months a year with soccer, between spring and fall season, indoor during the winter. Summertime, we were doing 3-on-3 tournaments, traveling to different states, playing in tournaments and things. So that became it was a hobby, but sometimes it felt like a job, because we were traveling so much. Almost every weekend we were somewhere doing a tournament.
Are your grandkids involved with soccer yet?
Well, the oldest one's 6, so no, he hasn't gotten started yet. Our 2 little ones are 4 months and 3 months. So that's going to be a while before. But I imagine they'll probably get involved at some point. So
Your kids were burnt out on soccer. They enjoyed it.
Yeah, for the most part. I think my daughter stopped playing in high school, and so did my son. And I think part of it was burnout. Part of it was wanting to do some different things.
Sure.
My daughter got into music, and she played. We were living in Kentucky at the time. She was the first freshman girl to ever be on the drum line, and she became section leader as a sophomore. So she was section leader for 3 years and really enjoyed that. My son played different sports. He did tennis, he did golf, he did, all the different things. So, and really got focused on golf after he got out of high school. In fact, he worked in the golf business before he got into doing what he does now, which he manages a performance auto group up in Centerville.
It's pretty impressive that your daughter was able to lead the drum line.
She, she was pretty impressive as a percussionist. And actually, the morning news channel actually did a piece on her senior year, because she was also part of the homecoming court. And so the morning news anchor came out and did a segment, and my daughter was trying to teach her how to play drums, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It was pretty cool. So,
it is fun.
And she actually got asked to go with the University of Louisville Orchestra to Europe her senior year. and they played in 7 different countries. They were over there for 14 days and played in 7 different countries.
Did you get to go with them?
Oh, no, we did not. No, I wish we could have.
Yeah.
She's traveled the world and I haven't. So, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, last question is if you wouldn't mind just sharing a defining moment of your life that's helped make you who you are or maybe shape your values and personality.
Oh, wow. That's a deep question. Um, it's interesting. I give my parents a lot of credit. My parents were um, Depression era kids. Both of them. My dad was in the Army during World War II. My mom served stateside as a Marine during World War II. So we were raised with those, that values at that time, right? And my dad never made a lot of money, but we never went without anything. They always managed to. We always had what we needed, but it was a different time, different mindset, and I think that played a lot into how I am and how I look at things. But I think the other thing is I had somebody ask me the other day, "You've been doing this for 36 years. What do you think is the biggest accomplishment that you look at in your career?" And I thought about it, and they said, "Well, is it the amount of money that you've raised? How much money do you think you've raised in 36 years?" And I said, "I don't know, well over 50 million, plus probably closer to 100 million with all the different campaigns and things I've done." I said, "But that's not the defining part to me. The defining part is when I moved back from Connecticut and I put on LinkedIn that I was back and I was looking
From Connecticut or California?
From Connecticut. So
Okay.
I retired from Scouts in Connecticut and moved back here. And I reached out on LinkedIn. I said, I'm looking if anybody has any ideas, openings and things. And a volunteer that had been a volunteer for me back in 1991 when I worked for the Boy Scout Council in Dayton sent me a note on LinkedIn. He said, "Let's grab coffee." And so we met for coffee and he told me, he said, I was leaving the house and he said, my wife goes, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm going to go meet with Mark Kraus. We'll go, he's back in town." And she goes, "Well, why are you meeting with him?" He said, "Because when he was here working with us, he helped us be successful and do the things we needed to do with, what we were trying to accomplish." And he said, "I'll never forget, everything, all the support that he gave us." Over those years, I was asked to be a pallbearer at a volunteer's funeral. I was, those are, kids that I knew that were coming up through the program that now I see as adults who reach out to me, kids that I coached who now are in their late 40s with kids that are going to college who reach out to me on Facebook and still call me coach and, hey, and we'll talk about things. And that's where I think that's what I'm most proud of. That's because I've built those relationships that have lasted 40 years, 35, 40 years. And I think, when I look back on that and the old thing, well, when you die, what do you want people to say about you? That's the kind of stuff I hope that they say, that he made an impact. He made a difference. He was there for us. So.
Yeah. Building relationships and making people successful.
Absolutely.
Which is what you're doing at the foundation, right?
Exactly. What we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
let's get into it. Give us, you said before the podcast.
Now that I've bared my soul.
Yeah. No, yeah. You said before the podcast that one of the biggest questions you get asked is, what does the foundation do?
Yeah.
So tell us what the foundation does.
So the foundation, we, as I mentioned earlier, we hold 117 funds, and those funds vary from solely doing scholarships to giving gifts to nonprofits throughout the community. And basically the idea is that our work is to help the nonprofits in the community accomplish their mission. That's really what it boils down to. So how that looks and how that happens obviously varies. Part of what I think our role is as well is to go out in the community, talk to potential donors. I have people call and say, "Hey, I want to make a gift. what are some of the funds that you would recommend that I might give to? So helping donors connect with those funds and those nonprofits and kind of, again, connecting those dots. We hold, right now, we're managing over $41 million within the foundation. We work with 3 different fund managers. The biggest one is about 31 million, which is held with Mercer. And that biggest fund that is there is the Legacy Fund, which the commissioners put with the foundation after the sale of the original sale of the Clinton Memorial Hospital. So that's about 13 or 14 million of that 31 million. And then we have
31 or 41?
Well, that Mercer holds 31 million, and then we have another fund that's managed by Ameriprise, which is solely for the Blanchester area. It's called the Valley Fund. And that fund, before it came to the foundation, was already with Ameriprise. And so they stayed with Ameriprise, but they moved the money. So we work with Ameriprise on that fund. And then we have another fund, an individual donor that had his fund through Merrill Lynch. So we work with Merrill Lynch on helping manage and helping him do what he wants to do with his funds as well. So all total 41 million. The biggest pot is at 31 million. That is all but really it's 115 of those funds sit within that, of the 117 sit within that 31 million.
And then how did the foundation get started? Was it because of the sale of the hospital?
No, not at all. The community foundation actually started back in 1986, I believe. And it was started, it was part of the bank that eventually became People's Bank. It was kind of part of their outreach, and then eventually kind of went out on its own. But up until 2015, the foundation had never had a director. It had been run by the board of trustees. So in 2015, they hired a part-time executive director. That role eventually became full-time. In 2015, the foundation was holding about $7.5 million in assets. As I said, today we're holding $41 million. So significant growth. A lot of that, obviously, when the Legacy Fund came in, that obviously elevated it. But honestly, when you have a pot of money like $31 million sitting in an investment, and your investments are earning this year 17%, every fund benefits from being part of that. And it really is kind of if you look at it as kind of a pooled income, because, if I have a fund that maybe we only have $50,000 in it, but I'm part of this $31 million, so I'm earning more money in my fund. So everybody really benefits from being part of that bigger group. And it's another thing that community foundations really have an advantage over. For me, if I'm going to take have my own nonprofit, and I'm just going to have my money sitting with the local bank, well, that's not really generating additional revenue that you can use to support, more organizations out in the community. So,
what year was the sale of the hospital? That infusion?
I don't really know the year of the sale of the hospital. I think that money, though, from the commissioners came in maybe,
approximately like
2010, 2011, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even think it was then, because it said 2015, they were only holding $7.5 million. So the sale of the hospital, there was a lag before that money was invested with the foundation. So I think the money became invested with the foundation maybe 2018, 2019, maybe. So
I can find that, I think, on your website somewhere, maybe.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure on those days.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's fine. Not super important. I just was curious.
But the foundation, really, as I mentioned to you prior to the podcast, Wednesday night was the Shop with a Cop program with the Clinton County Sheriff's Department, Wilmington PD, Blanchester PD, ODNR was involved, State Highway Patrol, Corrections Department. So there were probably 30 officers from the various departments that were there. There were 25 kids that were chosen by the schools to participate in Shop with a Cop. Shop with a Cop is actually a fund held by the foundation, and it's kind of a complete turnover. Whatever they raise is what they're able to spend for that year. We're hoping that's going to change, and we're actually going to be able to kind of do more year round to get more support so more kids can
Hmm.
participate. But one of the foundation donors actually gave the gift this year that allowed each child to be able to pick up to $200 in gifts for themselves. But it was interesting to watch because many of the kids got gifts for their parents.
Really?
Many of the kids selected bedding. Some picked food, some picked clothing, not all toys.
Really?
And it was really amazing to watch their process as they were thinking. And I think a lot of them also realized that, you don't think about $200 being a lot of money, but in their world, it was hard for some of them to spend $200.
Hmm.
And the officers that were with them were obviously keeping tabs so they wouldn't go over 200, but they were trying to really encourage the kids. Well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And the kids were just, when it was them picking their own stuff and realizing that they had a number that they had to deal with, the
Hmm.
whole mindset was different, right? It was really fun to see. But if you get a chance, people are listening. Blanchester PD has a great Facebook post about it. Wilmington PD does as well. We put one on our Facebook page.
Hmm.
But you can really see some of the photos and kind of get a feel. The pizza place over here,
Generations?
Generations,
Yeah.
provided pizzas
Awesome.
for the kids and everybody that was there. So, and Walmart was great. They did the program at Walmart, and they were just awesome to deal with. And so kudos to everybody that was involved with that. But those are the kind of things that our funds are doing,
Hmm.
that people really don't realize that it's the foundation that's kind of really behind the scenes on those things. I feel like the more we can be visible at those events, speaking at things like the Economic Alliance, that where you heard me talk about the foundation, going to chamber events and, speaking at Rotary clubs and Kiwanis clubs and all those kind of things. The more we can talk about what we're doing, I think the more opportunities that it's going to open up for people to want to engage
Hmm.
with the foundation in some capacity, whether that's supporting an existing fund or whether that's creating a new fund. We just had Lee's Creek United Church of Christ just basically had to make the tough decision to cease existence, but they made the best of the situation. The building went to the school for their administrative offices. And then they had some adjacent land that they sold. And out of that, they're creating 4 funds with the foundation. They're going to be Lee's Creek United Church of Christ Legacy Funds. All 4 are going to support different entities within the community.
Yeah.
But we're looking at about a $400,000 investment that they're making to start these funds, and that are going to have a huge impact in perpetuity within the community. So that, those are the kind of things that, people are like, well, where's that money going? Well, everything that comes into the foundation,
Hmm.
um, a lot of our funds are endowed. And, when you endow a fund, if you start that fund, let's say with $100,000, well, you can never touch that original $100,000. You can only spend the percentage of the income that you earned off the interest. So
Is that what endowed means?
that's what endowed means.
Okay.
And so typically most of our funds that are endowed give away about 3.5% of that income that they earn. Well, like the legacy fund, that's significant. That could be well over $300,000 that they're doing in grants out to the community. The Valley Fund, which is the fund out in Blanchester, something similar. They might be doing, $170,000 to $200,000 in grants just within the Blanchester community. So again, pooling those dollars makes a significant impact. And we have some funds, honestly, that are bare minimum. And that's part of our job as well, is to go to them and say, you have this small pot of money, but you haven't given anything for a while. Or in some cases, the fund advisors have changed.
Hmm.
They're not even aware of what they actually have. And so part of our job is to go out and educate the fund advisors
Yeah.
and try to help them really make the best use of their dollars within the community. So, and Lynn and I have had conversations with numerous funds about, do you want to continue doing what you're doing? Do you want to look at other funds that do the same mission and maybe combine with them? And so that has a bigger impact. how do you want to do that? So those are conversations we're having almost on a daily basis with those funds, and also with people who are interested in starting funds. What's that look like? What does that entail? The board a couple of years ago, maybe a year ago, decided that used to be the minimum to start a fund was 10,000. Now we've made it 25,000. But really, the mindset behind that is 10,000 really isn't a lot of money to generate a lot of income to really make a difference. So that 25 is really important. Another example, Dolly Parton Imagination Library has a fund with us, and ATSG is a big supporter of theirs. The ATSG actually pays currently to pay for all the shipping for all the books that go out, which is a huge relief, obviously,
Yeah.
Dolly Parton folks.
Kudos to them.
Yeah. And so ATSG, working with us and the Dolly Parton folks, we just closed the paperwork on a endowment that they're doing to endow the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in perpetuity.
That's awesome.
And they're making a significant gift over a 2-year period to do that. But it's also, we set it up as kind of a matching opportunity for other businesses in the community who might say, well, I see what they're doing. How can I participate in that? Well, here's what you can do. You can try to, we want to try to do a matching to try to match the amount of dollars that they're actually putting into it. Those are the things that, if when the DeWines leave office, and, Dolly Parton Imagination Library is really Fran DeWine's pet project. Well, what if that changes? What if at the State House things, they want to move to different direction?
Yeah.
Clinton County is still going to have Dolly Parton Imagination Library in perpetuity. And that's really, the critical factor, I think.
Yeah.
And so those kind of legacy things are really what we're about, and having, being able to do whatever it is, right? So, there's so many projects and things that we've been part of. The new pickleball courts, we played a role in that through several of our funds. And I would encourage people, if you don't really know about the foundation, go to the website. There is a way for you to see all the funds that are there. The funds they all have a description of what they're there for. If you have an organization that you're looking for funding, go and check it out, right? Right now, the scholarship portal is open.
For students.
So for students, so if you have high school seniors, this is the time now for them to apply for the various scholarships that we have. That portal will close sometime early mid-January. So they really need to, to get in there. And the process is not real difficult. There is a portal that they get into, and the steps are laid out for them, what they need to do. And so it's not it takes some time, but as it should, honestly, if you're applying for
free money,
for free money, it shouldn't be just press
some effort in,
right?
Yeah.
But I encourage folks, have your high school seniors and adult learners too. We have scholarships that are for adult learners. So go to the website and really check it out, because there's money there to really benefit folks of various stages in their life.
Yeah.
And organizations as well. So
I have a quick pivot question. So I assume that you guys can help maximize people's return on their funds. So if someone invested, you said like $1,000 in the bank, it would receive a certain amount of return. But with you, since you're managing so much, that percentage is a lot more. Is that correct or no?
Correct. Right.
The basic fundamentals.
Yeah. The basic, so you think about it, if you're putting it in a bank, you're going to make what, 2.5%, maybe, if you're lucky. And our board's direction to our money managers is relatively conservative. It's not a super aggressive portfolio by any means. But even saying that, we grew 17% in 2025. That's significant. So if you have
like a 17% return on
17% return on that investment, so that $31 million grew by 17%. Well, it wasn't 31 million when I got it. I think, and I'd have to pull the financials to see the exact numbers, but we were like, when I interviewed for the position, the foundation was at total 36 million, and now we're at 41 million. So if that tells you the kind of money that we generated,
the past few
in
months.
the past few months.
Yeah.
And if the market stays strong, that uptick will continue. Now, obviously, markets,
Mm.
vary. Even if we have a low year and we're 2 or 3% return, 2 or 3% return on 31 million as opposed to 2 or 3% return on 10,000, big difference. So that's why every fund really benefits significantly from being part of that pooled income.
Who do you see as your key community partners? And what is your key focuses? You mentioned like literacy and there's a health component too.
Well, the three things that the board kind of talked about, as I would call them, our big rocks,
Mm-hmm.
would be education/literacy. I think really a big focus on the literacy component, health and wellness. And I think that really covers a really wide spectrum, whether it's mental health issues, whether
Mm.
it's diabetes care, whether it's, whatever that looks like, right? It really kind of falls into that. And then the other one is economic development. And I think, again, that is being part of the community and seeing what's going on out there. We have some funds that really they have a focus, but they're always open to look at other things that might have a big impact if they're approached. So we're always looking at how can we really best utilize those funds to really have more of that impact.
How would you help support economic development? Because I would assume that those are typically private entities. I think economic development. How does that work? What does that look like?
Well, I have conversations on a regular basis with the Port Authority about what's happening with them. Actually, Josh Roth is coming on our board in January.
Nice.
So that's even going to create a better partnership with the Port Authority. But I think the fact that we partner with organizations like ATSG, the Port Authority, different businesses within the community that provide funding through their various funds, I think that's really kind of where we help in that economic way, because you have to look at it when you think of economic development, you're thinking about the work that the Port Authority does in bringing businesses into the community.
Yeah.
What we're doing is helping businesses support the community.
That makes sense. Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think you have to look at it. And I'm not really, I kind of cringe when I say economic development, because I think people don't always see that direction.
Yeah.
I also think that we have a big focus on workforce development, and that's part of our education initiative as well. So I got asked to be the chair of the Business Advisory Council back in September. So I'm serving in that role, and that they work as well with the Clinton County Workforce Collaborative. So I'm engaged with that, and we're trying to figure out taking this literacy initiative that the foundation started and making that a subgroup of the BAC, because there's so much synergy that can happen between all of that, and bringing more businesses to the BAC meetings, the quarterly BAC meetings, because we have educators in the room, we have nonprofits in the room, we have for-profits in the room, but we don't have enough. We need more people to come to those meetings and hear what's really going on out there in the community, right? So that's a perfect spot to really kind of talk about issues and concerns. And so we're making a big push to really get more people to the table. When I talk to businesses, I'm like, could you send somebody to the BAC meeting? Because I think it's important that your business be represented and hear what's happening out there.
To hear like what the needs of the community are and how they can use their resources to kind of help the communities that they do business in.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think some of these companies have their own corporate foundations. There's an opportunity for the people in the room to find out about those corporate foundations and how they might be able to access some of those available funds as well. So again, connecting the dots,
right,
and building those partnerships.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm taking it. If you're going to ask me to chair it, I'm going to take advantage of the situation and try to, really enhance it. Nobody wants to go to a meeting and be talked to. They want to go to a meeting to be part of it, right? And so how can we engage and get more engagement within the room, but also bring more people in and be part of that engagement, I think. And this literacy initiative started out with 12 people that I reached out to. We now have 21 people that are part of the group because I've got, every time somebody hears about it, they're like, how can we play a part of that?
Yeah.
So, that's all.
I think you mentioned before the podcast that in Clinton County, and maybe just in Wilmington, that there's 10% of the students who are literate in kindergarten, and then that correlates to 10% of students in high school go off to college.
So in the Wilmington area, only 10% of the students, when they're tested for kindergarten, are kindergarten ready. If you jump ahead to kids' senior year of high school, getting ready for college, only 10% of the kids go to college. So that number, it correlates. The other thing that I had mentioned to you, as great as the Dolly Parton Imagination Library is, and as great as, because they're from birth to 5 years old, and then Kids Read Now is pre-K to 5th grade. We have these great organizations that provide these books at no cost to families.
Mm-hmm.
But if the families aren't reading the books to the kids, or if it's a generational issue with literacy to where the parents struggle to read, so they're not able to read the books to the kids. And that's part of this discussion that we're having with this group is, how do we, I don't know, we can break that cycle. Maybe we can break that cycle, but how do we get to these kids while they're either in school, or maybe we do programming at the libraries or whatever it is that they're getting read to. If a kid is never read to, by the time they go into kindergarten, they only have a vocabulary of 460 words. And that's just what they're hearing, right? Mm-hmm. If they're read to every day, their vocabulary goes to over 1 million words. It's so significant that it's almost unbelievable numbers if you really think about it. The school superintendents, they were all there at the meeting, and they're really engaged in this process, and they understand, that there is an issue. And I think what they're feeling is, wow, now we have this group, and, if we can get these, the Dolly Parton group and the Kids Read Now and the Sochi group and all these people, these other the library systems engaged to really help us, that's going to help our students and help the system all the way along, right? So I think, how all these pieces fit together. And I think the meeting, and I was, to be honest, as I'm sitting in that room with all these educators and all these, I always tell people I never feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. And I really wasn't the smartest person in that room. There were a lot of PhDs in that room. So, yeah. But the fact that they're all sitting there, and I think they were wondering, okay, what's the purpose of this meeting and where's this going to go? But an hour and a half later, everybody's like, this is awesome. And now we have the start of a plan, and now we can really start making something happen with issues of literacy in this community. But it was a matter of, I felt, again, as people have come up to me and talked about the foundation as I'm out meeting with people, and they're like, we think the foundation needs to play a bigger role in these areas. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think people see the foundation a lot of times as just a scholarship portal, because that's the only thing, if you look at the paper every year, they have a picture of all the scholarship recipients, right? Well, we're a lot more than just scholarships, but people don't know that because we've not taken the lead in these initiatives. So that's really kind of been my goal, is to have us be as out front and as involved as we can be.
Does it make sense for the foundation to be the lead of that, or would it make more sense for the Southern Ohio Education Service Center to be the lead of literacy initiatives?
Well, Kurt and the Southern Ohio folks are heavily involved with this as well. Yeah. In fact, he hosted the meeting for us.
Okay.
They're involved as part of this whole plan. I think everybody that was there is going to play a major role in this, but I felt like we needed to be the one that put the meeting together and got everybody in the room. I don't think there's always been a lot of synergy amongst the various organizations. Everybody knows there's a problem and they're doing their part to help with that problem, but we're not looking at it from the 30,000 foot view to say, okay, we still have all these areas of deficiency. How are we addressing those? Right? Because the school system can only do so much.
Right.
The libraries can only do so much. The nonprofits can only do so much.
Yeah.
Right. But as a group, we can accomplish a whole lot more.
And didn't you say that you were getting together to kind of discuss what the problems are at different levels, and you're taking that to like a consultant to get a plan to address them?
So Kids Read Now, they are one of the groups that are involved in this. Part of what they do when they meet with school districts is that they talk about creating a community literacy plan. And so they have a questionnaire asking the schools questions about, what are your deficiencies, issues, where you see the challenges. Then they take that information and they create this community literacy plan. In some cases, they're working with states. So they're working right now with the state of Utah to do a statewide literacy plan that the state's willing to fund. That's really the key to so many of these things, and that we talked about before the podcast, is we can put the best plan in place, but then we got to fund it somehow. And then we got to make sure that the people that are part of that plan are actually, using it, right? So we're at that stage now to where the group is coming back with their notes on the literacy plan. Then KRN is going to put together the plan, the draft, bring it back to our group at the end of January. And then everybody look at it and say, yeah, this looks great. Let's move forward. Next steps. Maybe this is where we start looking at, okay, what's the funding need going to be to do some of these things? And I think, it's going to be a process, obviously, but I think getting the number of people, nobody told me no. When I asked them to be part of this, nobody said no. Everybody's like, yeah, I think it's important.
Because they recognize the importance
They
of
recognize
literacy.
the need. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't read, you can't get employed. I mean, think about it. I mean, one of my board members was telling me about a gentleman that he knows that's trying to get a CDL license, but he can't pass the test because he can't read. But he got moved through the school system. He graduated.
So even if you don't go to college or plan to, you still need to learn how to read. Yeah.
If you can't read by kindergarten, you're going to struggle the rest of your life. I mean, that's just. But again, if we can create programs, if the parents are unable to do it or unwilling to do it in the home, but if these kids can be part of programs to where they're getting read to, it's going to be life-changing.
Yeah.
Absolutely life-changing. And go out and talk to businesses in the community and ask them about the challenges of hiring. And they'll tell you some of the biggest challenges are they can't find enough people who are literate enough to be able to hire them for the jobs that are out there in some cases. Big concern, and that can relate to math too. Think about the companies that rely on numbers, engineering, those kind of things to do, even sometimes doing basic math equations to be able to do that job. If they're struggling with that, are they employable? And then you look at the issue, and, I hear about the issue that we have in Clinton County. They talk about the brain drain, right? The kids that are going off to college, in a lot of cases, aren't coming back to Clinton County once they graduate.
Yeah.
The jobs are here. ATSG has 150 job openings right now. So there's jobs here. Yeah. But are we able to fill them with who we have now here, right? Or bring people in, bringing people in from the outside. How many people that live in this area leave Clinton County for work? I think it's like 40% is the number I heard.
People who live here but work outside.
Work outside.
Yeah.
And the people that live outside that come in, the crazy part about it is the people that live outside and come into Clinton County are making higher wages than those that are leaving Clinton County to work outside the county.
Yeah, I've heard that too. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like So Wilmington City Schools, they've had a hard time passing their levy in the past few years.
It makes a big difference. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think some people, everyone has their opinion of what the challenges are, but do you feel like one of the biggest challenges to be a better school system would be that literacy piece?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think if we can figure out how to get the reading scores
Mm-hmm.
from a 1
Right.
to a 2 or a 3,
Yeah.
huge impact from not only for the kids and their families, but the whole community as these kids
Mm-hmm.
go through school and, get their first job at 16 years old or whatever it is. And,
Mm-hmm.
it helps build the workforce, helps maybe keep kids to come back after they graduate. And I don't think this is a discussion I've had with people forever. I think for so long, everybody focused and said you had to get a 4-year degree. If you didn't get a 4-year degree, you weren't going to be successful.
My grandpa did that all the time. Always told me that. It's like, grandpa, different world.
Different world. Well, today, and Southern State is part of this literacy initiative.
Mm.
There are a lot of 2-year degree programs. There are a lot of no degree jobs out there that you can go through, skilled trades jobs to where they'll give you an apprenticeship. And once you finish your apprenticeship, they'll hire you, right? Years ago, would have been, I was working for the Boy Scouts in Louisville at the time. So pre-2015, one of my board members, their business, they built coal barges. And he called me one day and he said, "Do you know any welders?" And I said, "Not off the top of my head." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, we can't find welders to hire. He said, "I'll even send them to school to learn the trade. We can't even get people to want to go to welding school." And I said, "Well, what are you starting them out at?" He said, "We're starting them out at $100,000 a year." Now, it's not a pretty job. It's a dirty job.
Yeah.
But you got the opportunity to go through a training and come out and make $100,000 a year.
Yeah. Doing a super manly job.
But you talk to businesses in the community, and it's somewhat similar, right? When I was in Connecticut, we were doing a program with the Velo Airlines, and I was meeting with their management, and I said, "What's your biggest concerns and issues?" And they said that in 5 years, there's going to be a deficit of 40,000 airline mechanics. Now, if you fly a lot, or even if you fly infrequently, are you comfortable with the fact that there's not enough airline mechanics?
No.
I'm not.
Yeah.
That's pretty important when you get on that plane. You're trusting that plane is,
Yeah.
ready to go. So, and these are jobs that do not require 4-year degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So do we, as a society, are we shifting the focus away from that? I think there's less and less people that I know that, I have a lot of people say, enrollments are down in 4-year institutions.
I think that said, though, we still want our local schools to be excellent. Even
Absolutely.
we still want that for the community, for the value of homes and everything. Like, we still want that to be good, no matter what a student does afterwards.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the key is our focus is on improving the literacy for those kids in pre-K through 12th grade. That's going to benefit them the rest of their life.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to increase, as you mentioned, the quality of life in Wilmington and Clinton County. That's going to increase home values. That's going to increase a lot of things, right? That all plays into that. What those kids do once they graduate high school, whether they go do a trade, whether they do a 2-year college, or they do a 4-year college, that really doesn't necessarily tie. I mean, it does, but it's not really what we're focusing on.
Yeah.
But this initiative is getting these kids to be able to read to where they can be productive adults, productive citizens. Mm-hmm. That's really the bigger picture.
So I'm pretty passionate about this issue.
I am really. I mean, I think I've the majority of my career has been working with organizations that benefit youth and families. And I've seen some, scouting, for example. People don't think of scouting as an educational organization. every kid that joins scouting, whether it's Boy Scouts of America or Scouting America or Girl Scouts of America, they have a handbook. In order for them to progress, they have to be able to read that handbook and do what's in that handbook.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a literacy function. Yeah. Groups that we're going to start inviting, other outside groups are going to start inviting to this literacy initiative will be the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and other organizations like that, to where these kids, I mean, if someone becomes an Eagle Scout, which is not easy to do because, the average is for every 100 kids that join scouting, only 4 usually end up becoming an Eagle Scout because of the requirements. But the work, the reading and the things that those kids have had to do, if they couldn't read, they'd have never achieved any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we don't think about these other organizations and how that all ties to literacy. So, my daughter was a teacher for a while, and I would, when she was in Louisville, she was teaching at a private school, and she asked me if I would start coming in on Fridays. She was teaching first grade, and if I would come in on Fridays and read her class. So I would go in, tried to get there every Friday if I could, and I would spend an hour reading to her class. The kids just were like sponges. They want somebody to do that with them. And then it got to the point where my wife became the treat maker because the kids wanted to know if I'd bring cookies or something in. So, every time I walked in, my wife had made something for them. But yeah, can we do that? And I brought that up as part of the conversation at this first meeting to the school superintendents. Is there an opportunity to put together a group that actually comes in and reads in the classrooms?
Yeah.
And is that an offshoot of this literacy collaborative? Maybe it is, right? I think there are some programs out there. I just don't think that enough people participate in it.
Yeah.
And really understand the impact that they're having.
Sure. Yeah.
when they do that, right?
Yeah, you talking just now made me think about how my grandma always took me to the library when I was little to do activities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even probably today, I would think the library does fun things, but it's just fun things.
Yeah.
But they have a opportunity to teach kids during these fun activities literacy, which they might not learn at home because the parent is busy or just doesn't think about it,
Yeah.
It's like these programs are super important for the community.
They really are. I mean, the old saying that it takes a village to raise a child, it really does, if you really think about it. And, the more people we can have engaged in these programs as a community, the better it's going to be for everybody in the community. And it does. I mean, it literally does impact every economic thing that you can think of within a community.
Yeah.
And people don't look at it that way, though. They was, we got, kids can't read.
Yeah, it's siloed in their mind, but it's connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What else do you want to share about the foundation?
Well, I think, in my mind, I think the fact, and I can share some numbers I shared at and I brought some notes so I could cheat sheet. I wanted to share some of our numbers from 24. So in 2024, just to kind of give you an idea, and obviously I don't have the numbers crunched yet for this year, but the foundation processed 665 donations out to various organizations that was valued over $760,000. We issued 225 grants worth over $1 million to various organizations. We processed 1,002 vouchers. So the way our system works is everything comes through a voucher and then we cut the checks out. So, whatever request comes in, and then we say, okay, this is how it's going to get funneled out, was over $5.6 million. And then scholarships in 2024 were over $212,000 in scholarship dollars. And the key to the scholarships, I think, is when a kid gets the scholarship, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year, they've got it for all those, they've got it the entire time. So it's not just a 1-year thing. It progresses with them through the entirety of their college education. So I think that's important to note too, that it's just not, because some scholarships, you might apply for some, you get it for 1 year. They have to go in and every year into the portal and say, yes, I'm still attending. Here's my grades, blah, blah, blah. but that scholarship's available then for the entire time. And in some cases, it could follow them off to grad school too.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Just depending on the fund that's there. So we have a lot of stuff, there's a lot of money there to do a lot of good. And I think, if I can say anything to folks is check out the foundation, find out what's available. And the other thing I would say is if you see us out, and I'm easy to identify, I wear a logo wear everywhere I go.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're interested in starting a fund, reach out. We started 5 new funds in the month of December. So people are interested in doing that. If you know folks who you think would like to donate to the causes, that's great as well. I mean, we just need the word out as much as we can to talk about the good works that are going on out there. And we feel fortunate to kind of be that, like the term, kind of like the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, kind of helping people direct those dollars so that those organizations can, every organization's got a mission. We're helping them accomplish those missions and support the community. So I think that's really the main thing to think about with the foundation.
Yeah. It sounds like something that keeps you passionate is connecting with people, connecting the dots and helping them be successful. What's a piece of wisdom that's helped guide you that you want to share with other people? And it could be wisdom or a quote that you particularly like. Got one, I can tell.
Well, I when I was first starting with the Scouts and the Dayton Council, my area of responsibility, my territory was kind of northern Montgomery County. And at that time, the Imes Pet Food Company had their corporate office within my geographical territory. And I got to know Clay Mateel, who was the owner / CEO for Imes. And he had an interesting story. He worked for Hershey. He interviewed with Paul Imes, who started the Imes company, and he became the sales manager for Imes and then eventually bought the company from Paul. And he was the sole owner of the Imes company. And when he got it to the point where he didn't think he could take it any further, they sold to Procter & Gamble for $2 billion. And again, he was the sole owner. So, but amazing man. He just passed away just not that long ago. But I'm sitting in his office, and I'm here. I am sitting with this, CEO of a really successful corporation, and I had asked him for 15 minutes, and he gave me 2 hours of his time. And at one point, he stops the conversation. He said, "Let me ask you a question." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "You don't see yourself on my level, do you?" And I said, "No." He goes, "But I do. And when you start thinking in those terms, you're going to be a lot more successful." So from that point on, I never was afraid to meet with anybody to talk about the organization that I was working for. But I think part of that as well, and you mentioned a couple of times about me being passionate about that. If you're I don't care what your job is, if you're working for a nonprofit, whatever it is, if you're not passionate about the work you're doing, it makes the job a lot harder. And if you're passionate about it, it's not a job. And so, yeah, and you're sitting here with me. You see the passion coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they're hearing the passion coming out. And I've had board members at organizations that I've gone to that I've taken over, and they said, "You literally can see the passion coming out of your pores." And I said, "I have to. I mean, this is what I'm focused on. This is what I've got to make, we've got to be successful to support the mission." So I think that's really a couple words of wisdom maybe that I would talk to people. I always tell my kids, liking what you do is 90% of getting out of bed in the morning. So you really have to like what you do.
Yeah. I think what comes across to me talking to you is that you're not only passionate about things, but you're actually doing the work to accomplish them. Like you're doing the work to gather people together to accomplish these things in our community, which is really cool.
Yeah, I have to tell you, my wife and I were talking about this the other day. I'm 63, and so I'm in the waning. I'm looking at I've already retired from one role and looking at, Social Security years. Whether I'll ever retire, I don't know. I can't sit around. I can't play that much golf. So I don't know. I may keep working well beyond my 67 threshold for Social Security. But I told her, I said, I always loved the organizations I worked for, but I feel like I have finally found my niche with this organization.
Mm.
I think my skill sets and what this organization was looking to do and the needs that the Clinton County community has, I think really suits what I'm able to do. And I love coming to work in Vaughan. I really do. And just meeting all the officers Wednesday night, and I knew a lot of them, but meeting all of them and then coming up and saying, thank you for being part of this. The families coming up and thanking for being, how do you not?
Oh, during the cop shop, the cop.
How do you not be passionate about something when you see these families, see the difference that it's making in their lives, whatever it is, right? But yeah, I'm happy to be part of this organization. Happy to be helping make a difference, in Clinton County. I think it's a great, I've been to the majority of the communities. I've been to chamber events and various things throughout the community. And one of the first events I went to was Dinner in the Fields.
Oh, great event.
And a great event. Yeah. And I got a chance to meet a lot of people. And having been in California and having been in Connecticut and then coming back to the Midwest and getting back around Midwest values, that, I tell people I survived California and I survived Connecticut, but I'm back here thriving in the Midwest. So yeah.
I really appreciate how they do Dinner in the Fields every year.
That's a great event.
Rural America.
It was a tad warm, but it was a great event.
So you already do a lot of things. The last question I have for you is just, what do you think would be a positive, real change for our community?
I really think if we can take this literacy initiative where I think we can, I think it could be the most significant thing to happen in Clinton County in a long time. It really has the ability to play a major role for every individual and every organization in this community. I think we're on the edge of something that could really have a huge impact. So, amongst other things, obviously there's a lot of great initiatives out there, but I think this one is going to change people's lives.
It seems like a lot of the organizations and schools feel the same way.
Yeah, they do. They do. Yeah. I mean, you think about Dolly Parton Imagination Library, 71% of the families in Clinton County participate in it. That's considered a phenomenal number within the Dolly Parton Imagination Library organization. But how many of that 71% are actually using it as it's designed to be used? And how many of those kids are really getting out of it what they should be getting out of it?
Yeah. And that's not a slam on the Dolly Parton.
No, not at all. Like they're doing a great job. But the reality is the books are getting to the homes, but are the books being used?
Yeah.
Right. So now the next step is we got to make sure those kids are actually getting read to.
Yeah.
And that's what, our focus is with them and with also Kids Read Now is Kids Read Now does primarily summertime programming. They'll send 9 books out during the summertime and then they get all the information back and provide that to the schools. But are those books being read in the summertime?
Yeah.
Right. It's the old saying, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah.
We can get the books in the hands, but how do we make sure they're getting read?
Yeah.
Right. So
our team did a pirate scavenger hunt over the summer, and we started at the library. People walked around town. I think we had like almost 100 kids or something.
Oh, that's great.
But one of the feedback that we got, and I never even thought about it, was one of the parents was thankful that their student had opportunity to read the clues at the different organizations. So I didn't even think about how that activity helped with like reinforcing reading. And
oh, absolutely.
So I feel like next year, probably think more about how can we consciously make that part of it to help reading be fun and be part of.
And there might be ways to enhance the way the clues are done. It might be a way for this literacy group to tie in with your event.
Sure.
Right. And how can we help you with that and help it, grow and be more successful?
Yeah.
again, connecting dots,
Right.
so.
Well, thanks for what you do. Thanks
Yeah,
for sharing
my
your
pleasure.
story.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was nice to have the conversation. So
How can people best connect with you if they want to learn more?
you can reach out on our website or you can call me. My number is 937-566-1634. That's the main number to the foundation. It's my cell phone, so it rings to me. I have to answer every call that comes in, even the spam calls, but feel free to do that. Or my email is mark@ClintonCountyOhioFoundation.org. And that's a long one, I understand, but I'm the one that has to write it out all the time. But I'd love to hear from people. And you can always stop by our office. We're located, our office is in the Smith-Feike building there on Rombach. And happy to have people stop in periodically to talk about what we've got, or they want to start a fund, and happy to have those conversations. And I'm happy to be invited out to be part of things as well. I try to get out to as many things as I can. So, if you have an organization that would like me to come out and talk about what we're doing, would love to do that. So
thank you.
Thank you.
See you around the community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's it for our podcast today. I hope you enjoyed our interview with Mark Kraus with the Clinton County Foundation. If you have more questions for him or ideas, please feel free to reach out directly. If he will talk to us dorks, he will certainly talk to you as well, because after all, we are a community of empowered individuals. If you want to get in touch with Real Change Wilmington or share your story, you can contact us on our website, realchangewilmington.com, visit our Facebook and Instagram pages, or grab a free copy of our local newspaper at Kroger, Sam's Meat, and Fiesta Veracruz. We also currently send our free newspaper direct mail to over 2,500 Wilmington residents every month. So if you want to help us cover our printing costs and advertise your local business, event, or job posting, please email advertise@realchangewilmington.com. With that, I'm your host, Dustin Pierce. Keep it real, Wilmington.